Welcome to the Overton. I am Zeb Boykin.
And I'm Joshua Vandernoort.
And we are going to be talking about the episode on Jubilee where I believe her name was Sarah Stock, works with Elijah Schaefer and some of those guys. She kind of went in on Sam Seder, and then that kind of snowballed into Matt Walsh picking it up. Daily Wire kind of talk about where he's coming at from that and where he came from. You know, he's had a bit of an arc. And then we're going to talk about another little segment on the Jubilee, kind of in the realm of religious and morality type setup. But have you seen any of this stuff? I know you've been out of town.
I've been getting clips of it. I haven't watched the full thing. I'm not totally acclimated on the whole drama. So you set this all up. I kind of like blind reacting to stuff. So I'm excited to get started.
Maybe we'll get something good out of you today.
Yeah.
But for once. The first one that kind of got the snowball rolling is kind of set this up is Jubilee has these, you could call them panels, circles, kind of like bull in the ring type setups where they take 12, 25, I don't know, it's like 1v25 or 1v12 or something like that, where they take one personality and they kind of let them have a round robin with some of the other candidates. I might actually put in for that, Josh.
You might put in for it?
Yeah, I'm going to send
that would be cool.
An audience. But what they do is they take these people and they allow a round robin where they make a statement and then the person comes up and tries to defend that statement. And so Sarah Stock takes a position of nationalism. And it's in the title, this is a rising question, and it's going to be a defining question moving forward. It's going to split, like I've said. It's going to split the right. And the question is, what is an American? And she kind of defends this position here. And then we'll watch it and see you on the back end.
Same with xenophobic what's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
Xenophobic nationalism is better?
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White Christian,
it's rooted in European identity.
White. So your argument is that
has been the dominant culture.
Just to be clear,
and we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of America...
For the majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No, it doesn't mean
now instead we're saying there's something wrong with xenophobia. Dominant
culture. No. I mean, look, I got to be honest with you, you and I have a fundamental disagreement. We will never see eye to eye on this. It's a choice. And people, I think what you're expressing, though, is really what the Trump movement at its heart is about. And I think that's problematic.
I disagree. I don't think Trump's anywhere close to being a Christian nationalist. That's ridiculous. Trump's basically a Democrat from 15 years ago when it comes to social issues.
So you don't think that he's conservative enough for you?
Oh, definitely. Nowhere close. No.
He's not xenophobic enough for you?
No, he's trying to import a bunch of H-1Bs. Are you kidding?
Right. Oh, so you want to get them out too? Yeah. No, I think you're making my argument for me.
Josh, blind react to this. I know that's a lot to take in. It was about 2 minutes of video, but what do you think?
So, there's a lot to tackle there. Honestly, I'm not totally... I've seen this girl before, but I don't follow her that closely. I was actually impressed by a lot of her takes. Even now, it's sort of popular on the far right to be what she described as a xenophobic nationalist, but her to go so far as to saying even Christian nationalism, I thought was great. I was very happy to hear that. Like you said, there's a lot to tackle. I don't want to like totally, I don't even know where to begin, but I love, just because it's fresh in my mind, I love that little jab he had at the end where he goes, I think you're making my argument for me. Like this is how these people operate.
It's a default out.
Yes, it's like to them, it's common sense, which is kind of the problem we're trying to tackle.
Dogmatic.
Yes, exactly. That even on the right wing, there's dogma. There's the common consensus, which is like I guess an example of on the right wing side, it would be something like, well, the Constitution is the greatest thing since Scripture itself, where we have to adhere to the Constitution at all costs, and the Constitution should be our guiding light rather than Scripture. And I know, like, I don't want to get too far off on a tangent here.
Well, we're
but
going to go down that rabbit hole here in a second.
Definitely.
Before we jump into that, Mark on Twitter said, sorry. That's a dead name over here. Why are those two mutually exclusive? He's talking about xenophobic nationalism versus a melting pot globalism. I would think it was self-explanatory. One is closed borders, one is open borders. It's a nation-defining thing. So a xenophobic nationalism requires, xenophobic is used tongue-in-cheek here, so it requires closed borders and a national identity, where melting pot globalism assumes that assimilation isn't real from countries outside of whatever that defined nation is within that nation. And a globalism requires that there is no defining nation. So this is the question. Is a nation able to be defined by a people? And the answer is obviously yes. And the people that want to make that assertion will also say that America, or those on the other side, will also say that America is just an idea. For instance, Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, he's gotten so much flack since he's called Americans lazy on Christmas Day. He called Americans lazy, but in the same breath, I have a question of, if anybody can be an American, is everybody lazy?
That's good. I like that.
See, this is the problem they run into. It's just like I think they're extraditing a guy that was protesting the Palestinian, or protesting for Palestine on college campus for anti-Semitism. But the question is, at this point, if there is no American being defined as ethnicity, can we just deport people based on ideas? If we can import people based on ideas to be an American, can we just export people based on ideas to be not American? Like, at this point, there is nothing stopping you from just having a free flow of people in and out of the country. So,
and I know we're going to talk about that guy a little bit on our Friday show with Rodney, so I don't want to delve in on that too much here, but it is funny to think about, like to what you said, and I'm kind of bandwagoning here. But the point you made about how, like, is it okay for a nation to identify itself based on a people? We say absolutely. This guy, the guy in the video, not even him specifically, but any liberal American and even a lot of conservative Americans here in America, their definition of what a country is, basically all other countries on the globe, except for Western countries, maybe even Russia, but probably Russia too, would be considered racist.
Yes,
China,
they're all by definition xenophobic,
right?
But they don't apply the same standard.
Yes. If the most qualified person to lead any nation on the planet in the world was a white guy, and they went over to India and was like, I should rule, I'm the most qualified, they wouldn't let it happen because he's not Indian, because he's not Chinese, because he's not Venezuelan. Well, maybe in that case, who knows?
Correct. It only happens in Western countries, which is why you have Indians running European countries, and you have everyone in America advocating against what is an American.
And I want to be clear to you. I mean, I know you and I are on the same page. We don't see that as a problem. It totally makes sense for the people of India to want to be led by Indians.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm saying. Is it okay? Like, so he goes, oh, this guy on the video, he's so snide. He goes, oh, only like white Western Christian people? Is it wrong for white Western Christian nations to want to be led by their own people. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not because we hate blacks. It's not because we hate Indians. We don't hate these people. We just want our country to remain our country.
Yeah. Mark asks, he says, there are good ideas and there are bad ideas. Yes, nationalism is not only a good idea, but it is a defining term. If America is a nation, then we must have nationalism defined by ethnicity. Otherwise, it is just a country bound by borders, no different than the EU or NATO or whatever citizenship of the world that you want to put on it. You mentioned the Constitution earlier. We're going to get into this. I'm going to cut you off for a second and see if this works like I want it to. So John Jay says, Providence has been pleased to give this is a Federalist 2, to give one connected country to one united people, a people descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion, attached to the same principles of government, very similar in their manners and customs, and who, by their joint counsels, arms, and efforts, fighting side by side throughout a long and bloody war, have nobly established general liberty and independence. This is John Jay in the Federalist 2. Mm-hmm. I mean, that sounds, pretty nationalistic, xenophobic to me. Maybe, somebody like Alexander Hamilton will kind of balance this idea of the idea of a nation out with John Jay. But I guess that's not going to happen because he says, resuming the subject of our last paper, we proceed to trace still further that's small text. Sorry, guys. Consequences must result from two unqualified admissions of foreigners to an equal participation in our civil and political rights. The safety of a republic depends essentially on the energy of a common national sentiment, on a uniformity of principles and habits, on the exemption of the citizens from foreign bias and prejudice, and on that love of country which will almost invariably be found to be closely connected with birth, education, and family. Family and heritage being the defining thing of a nation, Josh. Mm-hmm. Here we have Jefferson. These principles with their language they will transmit to their children. In proportion to their numbers, they will share with us the legislation. They will infuse into their spirit, warp bias its directions, and render it a heterogeneous, incoherent distracted mass. I may appeal to experience during the present contest for a verification of these conjectures, but if they be not certain in event, are they not possible? Are they not probable? Is it safer to wait with patience 27 years and 3 months longer for the attainment of any degree of population desired to expect it? So this is in response to the putting in that they live within the country 7 years before they become a citizen in America. So he's advocating for 30 years. And I rail against Jefferson a lot, but he did understand that American was a posterity nation. And we'll get into that also. Maybe Washington has something. America, which belongs to you, the name of America, which belongs to you in the national capacity, must always exalt the just pride and patriotism more than any appellation derived from local discriminations, with slight shades of difference. You have the same religion, manner, habits, and political principles. See, I mean, if anybody wants to rail against the Founding Fathers or rail against what is a nation, the Founding Fathers, I mean, the large portion of these boomers that want to advocate for this idea of a nation hold this Constitution as biblical. They hold it as a living document, and they hold the Founding Fathers as essentially God in this context. So the question is, why are they contradicting on this solid point that we have, Josh?
Well, you raise an excellent point, which is it's basically picking and choosing. They uphold the Founding Fathers to such a, in this high, basically disciple-like standard, yet don't really care about the nitty-gritty stuff that's in there. This is a discussion I have with, boomer relatives, boomer coworkers of mine all the time, where, this melting pot mentality, that's what the founders wanted. That's not what the founders wanted. And they understood this. They understood that the kind of unity that we experience in America for a long time was only possible as, the most common one that we, cite is John Jay, one nation, one people, one ethnicity, one religion. And, the things that they constantly appeal to, like freedom of religion. Freedom of religion did not mean Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, you name it. It was unimaginable to them that we would be in this place where it was, it's not 50-50, but we're on our way there. They meant Protestants and Catholics. That's what freedom of religion meant to them. It was unimaginable that these extremely foreign religions would become as prevalent as they are today and are only continuing to rise.
Absolutely. Let's look at the Constitution. I mean, this is the living standard by which a lot of these GDP-only founding father worshipers, Constitution is a living document greater than the Bible itself. Let's see what they have to say, what the Constitution has to say. I mean, this is the basis of everything these people believe. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. So, Josh, the question is, what is this word, right? Boop, boop, boop. What does posterity mean? Posterity.
In this context...
In this context, I mean, it's an extremely specific word that we don't use anymore.
Mm-hmm. Posterity, unity? Is that a good way to...
Posterity specifically means your children, your grandchildren, your descendants, your family. That is specifically what it means. Almost every dictionary that we pull up is going to say the offspring of one progenitor to the furthest generation. All future generations.
I did not know that.
That's what these people advocated for. That's what the Founding Fathers advocated for. If you look at the Naturalization Act of 1790, 1795, 1798, they all say specifically naturalization can only be given to free white peoples. It says free because there was obviously white slaves. And it defines white as... Generally, they understood white as European, of European stock. So the Founding Fathers understood exactly what we're trying to say. They understood that a nation is a singular people. So if these boomers want to ride the curtails of the Founding Fathers and they want to quote all these guys, or they don't even quote them, they just want to say that they worship them and the Constitution is the greatest thing, I say dismantle it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's going to have to before we rebuild anything. That's a hard take, but that's what is going to have to happen. Otherwise, these boomers are going to prop it up and misinterpret it intentionally to get their way.
Because I think, but before we go to the next clip, I just want to say that on on that point, which is what we're advocating for is ourselves, for our future generation, for our children. You are not allowed to organize based on like the fact that you're a white person. You're allowed to do if you're black, Asian, Hispanic, anything else. And what we need to do is we need to start to think in the future tense, and we need to start to demand the things that we want. I'll give you a perfect example of this morning. I was listening, I work at a radio station, and I was listening around noon. Dan Bongino was still on the air. And he was talking about, the CR bill coming up, how they're going to extend the CR,
yep.
Or whatever. And he said, we have to be realistic. We have to live to fight another day. And it's not my fantasy. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's not my fantasy world where the GDP is 18%. I forget the exact thing he said. I hope I'm not butchering it. But I was like, in Dan Bongino's fantasy, we have like a low spending. In your fantasy, in like your perfect world. And this is what I'm saying. Look, you and I, Zeb, it's definitely not in our lifetimes. We're not going to get everything that we want. But unless we start putting it in people's minds, asking for things, demanding things, then we're definitely not going to get what we want. We need to start asking for exactly what we want, and then that will pave the path to get better things, to get what we haven't been getting for 50 plus years, which is nothing. That's what we need to start thinking
instead
about.
of kicking the can down the road.
Yes.
And it's cementing 9 months of Biden legislation into the Trump administration. This is why Massey's taking so much heat right now, is because he's actually wanting to do something and make change. You know, I will give it to the leftists. There is a Trump cult where if you have any quarrel with Trump, you are kicked out. I mean, these people are gatekeepers of the right, and this is the issue that we're seeing exactly right here today. MAGA is not a nationalistic movement.
No, not anymore.
And so what is going to happen is this divide is going to be because of a separation of MAGA, Make America Great Again, and what we can define as what is American first and not necessarily America first. And this movement has... I would wish that we could unify together, but it's simply not going to happen because the boomers aren't going to allow it. Well, people in general aren't going to allow it. The boomers are just the bulwark for that. Here for the main segment, we got Matt Walsh. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video. I'm going to let it play, and then we'll react to it on the back end. And I do have a video of Matt Walsh maybe like a year or 2 years ago, contradicting exactly what he's espousing today. So this is going to show the trajectory of the conversation that's happening today.
You know, this melting pot stuff is almost beside the point anyway. Even if America is a melting pot, however you define melting pot, that does not answer the question of identity. Melting pot is not an identity. Let's just agree with Sam Cedar for a moment, just for the sake of argument. It's a melting pot. Fine. Melting into what? And for what purpose? Like, that's the question, Sam. What are we melting into? Why? Imagine that I told you, let's say I told you about an exciting new organization that I just founded. I said, I just founded an organization. You're going to love it. And you ask me, well, what is the organization? And I say, oh, it's an organization with a bunch of different kinds of people. It's a melting pot of people. Do you see how you would still have absolutely no clue what the hell sort of organization it is? I would not have explained anything about what the organization actually is or why it exists or what its purpose is. Yes, it has lots of different kinds of people. Great. Why? What are they doing? What is the context? That's the question that Sam cannot answer. He's debating national identity, but he has absolutely no conception of what our identity actually is. That's why when Sarah asks him, well, what do you really not think it's that? What do you think it is? He can't answer. According to leftists like Sam Cedar, our country's identity has nothing to do with religion, ethnicity, race, tradition, or borders or laws. Right? Because he would say that illegal aliens who come here are also just as much Americans as anybody else. So that means that borders and laws also don't define the country. If that's the case, what is our country exactly, Sam? What is it? What does it mean to be an American? What is our identity? Leftists like Sam Cedar can't answer that question. It's the what is a woman problem all over again. So they would rather launch ad hominem attacks or filibuster than give you a coherent answer because they can't, and they know they can't. Guys like Sam, they can spit and sputter and tantrum all they want, but it won't change the facts here. And the fact is that, again, America was founded by Christians of Western European descent. That is the culture that our country is rooted in. That's a fact. If the Chinese or the Arabs had colonized North America and founded a nation here, it would be a fundamentally different nation. This country, the USA, the country that we live in right now, could not have been formed by any group other than Christians of Western European descent. Now, other groups can form countries. Many groups have formed many countries, obviously, but they could not have formed this country. This country is distinctly Christian and European at its core. That is a fact. And guys like Sam have no response to that fact other than to cry about it. And that's why in response to my posts on this subject, in which I simply asked him to define American identity, Cedar posted this inane message on X. He said, quote, "I'm impressed how aggressively these guys from Daily Wire are owning white nationalism and theocracy." So that's supposed, he called, white nationalism. That's scary. Don't you get it, Sam? We don't care. You can label it all you want. Oh, that's white nationalism. That's theocracy. That's Nazism, whatever. It doesn't matter to us. Don't you see that? Your labels don't mean anything to us. They mean nothing, not a single thing. See, the emotional blackmail only works if we give a damn what you think of us, and we don't at all, not at all. So you're left with the question still that you can't answer. Once again, he refuses to articulate an actual response. Instead, he resorts to these dumb labels that win debates in his circle, but he's left flailing and flabbergasted when he finds himself surrounded by people who aren't afraid of the labels. We don't care what you call us. The word white is not a pejorative to us. So now what, Sam? What do you have to say now? That tactic's off the table. We don't care. What about the issue? You have anything to say about that?
I'm very impressed with Matt Walsh. You know, you said he had a video, because I wasn't exactly sure which clip you were going for. I wasn't.
Which way's the wind blowing? Where's it going?
Yeah,
Where's
exactly.
it going? I don't mind Matt though.
Yeah. He seems like a good enough guy, but
he's caught up in a nitty net.
His bosses, aren't on the same page. So I'm actually impressed that he's saying this. And granted, I think, other people and more recently Candace Owens have kind of paved that path for him. But still, Matt Walsh, credit where credit is due. And I think there's the main takeaway that I got from this is the fact that he is saying it. The fact that he is saying that what a nation is deeper than, in our case, it would be the Constitution. Where did the Constitution come from? People say all the time, they say America is a young nation. It's almost 200 years old, or it's a little over 200 years old. Not true at all. America is thousands of years old. It's built off of the backs of people that have prior history, from the people that migrated here or colonized this land from Europe, which is thousands of years old. It's built off of European culture. And European culture, as we've learned, because truthfully, like this sort of melting pot idea that America, recently has been recategorized as, that is an experiment. And what are we seeing? People that are extremely different, people that are of vastly different races, vastly different cultures, they come here and they set up settlements. They don't assimilate. Assimilation is extremely rare, and the only places that you see it are from slightly different types of Europeans, like the Irish, like the Italians. They consider themselves to be Americans, even though and there's still minor cultural differences between us and them. But you get into like Asian culture. They come here and they are totally segregated. They intentionally segregate themselves. It's not, to them, it's not about becoming an American. It's about higher quality of life.
Well, as you know, last week I went on a Disney trip. Went to Disney World. Went to, I guess this is specifically going to be Magic Kingdom. But we went there and there was a significant amount of foreigners there. I say significant. I'm talking like upwards of 50, 60%, which is absolutely insane to me. And they got their various ways. I had a conversation with a few of them. But what I want to note is that the number of foreigners, you can tell who is a foreigner and who is not American. You can tell who obviously is not white. That's easy. But Josh, you can tell who is an American and who is a European, who is from Spain, if you're good enough, enough practice. But there's a distinct look and feel in a way someone carries themselves as an American, even subconsciously. You can tell who is British by the way they carry themselves. And I don't know how to really explain that, but when you're in a group of people, you can look at them and you can tell. And so you don't know, you kind of toss it up, you know, they're probably that. And then they come out and they speak, and it's extremely distinct. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I say that to say that America is a distinct identity, a distinct nation by their teeth. Yeah. I mean, that's one indicator. For sure it is. Again, the way they carry themselves, the way they groom themselves. I mean, it's specifically, it's not just the Brits. It's the Spanish. It's the Irish. There was some people from Netherlands. What do they call themselves?
Dutch.
I should have known that. But yeah, I mean, these people carry themselves differently. We stand out.
Not obese.
We stand out, but they stand out. They stand out to us also. I didn't see, dude. I want to do a video on Disney. So when I went to Disney, I think we've been lied to. The people in Disney weren't, even the Americans weren't really fat or obese. Did you make the point that fat people don't have money? I think my other buddy made that point. He said fat people don't have money to go to Disney, and that's loosely true.
That is funny though. I don't have money to go to Disney, but this is another thing. So Schmuckatelli in the comments, he said we are obese, referring to Americans. Small comment, but there's definitely truth to that. But who are the Americans that are obese? It's actually a lot of the foreigners that come here and then get a higher quality of life. I mean, when's the last time?
Don't make me pull up the map, Josh. You know the map. Map.
I know what you're talking about, but let me just say, when's the last time you saw, like, in your local town, a really ripped Hispanic guy? Most of the Hispanics I see are real short, real chubby. And also, you know, you gotta, you know, there's what do they call that? It's the genetic thing. Like, you know how like Indians, and by Indians I don't mean I mean feathers, not dots. They all have a weight problem because of how their bodies process sugar. Hey,
Stu's calling me obese. I mean,
oh, he said, Zev,
I ain't been working out.
Obese.
I'm probably like 245 right now. Obese, maybe. Big, sure.
Let's see a picture of you, Schmuckatelli.
Let's go to the gym, Stu. Stu's on what's that, Ozempic? Nah,
Are you really?
No, he's not. But yeah. But
I'm glad you like that.
Back to the Walsh conversation. I mean, yeah, Walsh is playing this game of the conversation is carrying. And Daily Wire is kind of losing viewers. They lost Candace Owens. They lost Brett Cooper. They're losing viewers. They're losing their place in conservative circles. And so what they're going to do is they're going to try to get it back. So they have to say things that they aren't typically used to saying to get the traction again. So let's take a look at where Walsh was a year or 2 years ago. It might be in here.
But I don't believe that our unifying principle was ever race, skin color, ethnicity. Let me finish. I don't think that's what our country ever, and I think in fact that's what separated our country from every other. Because you can go to any other country on earth pretty much and find countries that their unifying principle is ethnicity or religion. I think that for us, our unifying principle was essentially a doctrine. It was the doctrine of human rights. I think our unifying principle is that doctrine, that set of ideas.
My specific question was, why would it be immoral for me to want to preserve my European heritage? And I didn't say, do you think we should? I said, why would it be immoral?
I think it's un-American, is what I would say.
But why would it be immoral?
I think it's un-American.
But that's
I'm not gonna try to get.
No,
I don't know why you're trying.
It's okay.
I'm not gonna try to get into your heart and your soul and find out what's going on there. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's American. I think it's flawed, and I just told you why I think it's American.
Is it immoral for me to want to preserve our European heritage?
I guess it would really depend on what motivates that, and if you're saying that it's not motivated by bigotry, all I can do is trust you on that. I can't look inside your soul.
Top-down orders, Josh.
What year was that? Do you know off the top of your head?
It was probably a year or two ago.
A year or two?
Yeah.
I was expecting like 2018 or something.
No, it was pretty recently, I think.
Oh man, that almost makes me even
Don't quote me
nervous.
on that, but I'm pretty sure it is. Like about 2 years ago.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, like I don't think Matt Walsh is a bad guy, but
Well, it's top-down orders, dude.
I mean,
They have
but
to,
like he
they have to-
immediately jumped on. Oh well, you say it's not bigotry. The implication being that the only reason that a white person could say, or European, just say, "Hey, look, I'm European. I see that like the culture is changing, the country I grew up in is changing, and I want to preserve what I grew up with for the next generation." For him to say, "Well, is that based out of bigotry?" Well, why is he saying that? Because they're a white person, and the implication being that that's not okay. It can only be based off of racism for that. Well, what happens when I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about London. They said London has fallen. London looks like Pakistan. It's impossible. It's almost impossible for you to go to London, England, and find like people, like white European people. It's all Pakistanis. And I can't verify this for anything, but so that's been happening there. There's no trend that says it's going to stop. And what's wrong with us saying we don't want that to happen here? Is it so? I guess just all European nations must be replaced with people that have their own countries elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, Troy should have just accepted the horse without question anything. Come on, just accept the invasion. You're being invaded and displaced. Just accept it. I mean, these people don't want anyone to fight back. It's like we have to preserve a thing. And that thing is our heritage. Our grandfathers, their grandfathers have fought for something. And that was to give their son something greater. And a heritage. I mean, these people are no better than Jacob stealing from Esau. That's what they are.
Yeah, and
They're
you have to recognize it for what it is. The vast majority of these people coming here. And again, I want to reiterate this. This is not hatred. This is not animosity. This is out of a sense of self-preservation, out of a sense of how do I see the country going? What will it look like for my children? I want my children to live in a prosperous nation that our ancestors built for us. We want to preserve that for them. And my point is about a lot of these foreigners. They're not evil. They might be malicious, but they're not inherently evil. But you have to understand.
Not inherently evil.
No, but you have to understand they're coming here not because there's this nation across the sea, America, and they allow people like me to come here, and I'm going to contribute because I think I can. It's not that. It is I can get a better life for myself and for my immediate family over there rather than I can in the country that my ancestors built. And then they come here and then they stick their noses up and they act like they own the place.
Yes.
And then the natives,
Because all other nations are nepotistic.
yes, exactly.
And I want to make this point before we jump into this other Mark Dice clip. I want to make this point that nationalism is inherently white nationalism. Nationalism is inherently black nationalism, or whatever nation you wish to come from. I would advocate for Indian nationalism
In India.
Right. This isn't hard. Just as I would advocate for American nationalism in America. This isn't hard. I mean, when you have a Christian nationalism in a place such as Zambia, they have black Christian nationalism. This isn't hard to juggle at all.
And what's the word? An illustration I like to use is people will constantly point out the faults of our, ancestors, the bad things they done. And I'm not saying it's squeaky clean either, but they'll constantly point out how like at times, like blacks were mistreated. The native Indians were mistreated. I get that. But imagine this. If it were any other nation, if it were any other culture other than Europeans that colonized America, if it were the Chinese, for example, and keep in mind the Chinese of the 1400s.
Well, they can't. Well,
Where would the native Indians be today?
Well, let me stop you there. They can't.
That's true too.
Because they haven't.
Yes.
The only colonization culture is white culture, European culture, British culture. Mexico was founded by the Spanish. a European people. Canada, South Africa, Rwanda. Wait, Rhodesia, sorry. Where else? I mean, Brazil, Argentina. I mean, all these countries have been colonized by white peoples. I mean, who else has colonized anything, Josh?
And they haven't, and that's the thing, is that like that's why they say colonizer. That's why
I mean,
colonization
we
is a
bring
bad
them
word.
prosperity.
That's true.
You have complete cargo cults in Africa that rely solely on, U.S. airplanes dropping crates for them so they can eat food. These people can't exist without.
Well, and it's a good thing,
us.
is my point. That's a good thing that it was the Europeans, because the Europeans were largely Christian. Paganism in the European world was all but dead by then, you know? And the thing is like, if it were, it isn't, and it wasn't. But if it were the Chinese, I mean, look at how they treat themselves. You think they would have given native Indians reservations, or would they have killed them all? And look, I think we have an obligation and a responsibility towards the people that were here before, you know, as us. But my point being, if it were anybody else, they'd be extinct. They would have been wiped off during Manifest Destiny if it were Chinese Manifest Destiny. That's what would have happened. That's absolutely what would have happened. So my point being is, like, we get dogged on all the time for how they were treated. It was going to happen no matter what. A war between the native Indians and somebody, they should be thankful that it was us, is my point. Hey, look, I'm sorry. It's just the way it is.
I got this little snippet from Mark Dice's video a while back, so I'm going to play that, and then we'll see you on the back end.
Uncontrolled immigration threatens to deconstruct the nation we grew up in and convert America into a conglomerate of peoples with almost nothing in common. Not history, heroes, language, culture, faith, or ancestors.
Josh, take that for a second.
Okay.
Buchanan.
Zeb's doing some technical work. Yeah, that's a totally valid point. And this is, you know, we've kind of harped on this to death, but it is an important point to just kind of pound into people's heads, which is there is no such thing as a multicultural society. A society inherent within its own definition is commonality. You can, you can have certain, no one's going to be exactly the same. That's not what we're saying, but complete opposites, drastic differences. It's incoherent. It is metaphysically impossible for these types to coexist. And the point being is, like, so especially in our world, you have a democratic republic. What happens when it's 50-50, one race or one ethnicity, whatever you want to call it, or another? And of course, there's more than one. But what happens when the split is so drastic that it basically becomes a stalemate? This is not drastically different people fighting towards a common goal. They all have their own selfish goals. And for one group to say, let's rise above that, everybody, it takes all the groups doing that for it to work, but they're not doing it. And so what we're saying is basically, it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? You're not saving anybody. You're not being altruistic by standing above the rest and saying, let's all come together. I think we all should come together, but under the banner of Christ. For us to come together under the banner of, like, the Constitution, Chinese immigrants getting checks aren't going to do that. Nigerian immigrants getting checks aren't going to do that. It's only really through God is this even possible. And even that, to like these foreign nations with their own religions, even that's a long shot.
Well, there's a saying that goes, hold on, let me move this out of the way. There's a saying that goes, that Stephen Wolfe says a lot, is grace perfects nature. And what he means by that is, nature is going to exist no matter what. And so grace perfects that nature. That doesn't mean that we become a kumbaya It's an advocation against what is the Catholic Church. Not against a universal church, but a visible universal church where we can work with other nations as a Christian nation, yet a nation still exists. So that's kind of the point there. I was struggling to get this chart up, Josh. We were talking about the cargo cults a second ago. But this is 2022 contributions to the World Food Program by the 5 largest economies. I mean, this chart just shows you how much the U.S. gives to everyone else. I mean, this is a product of British colonization, European colonization. I mean, you can advocate to bring everybody here, but do we stop sending everybody else food? I mean, these people, they rely on us. They come here, they get welfare, they rely on the American-built, what my grandfather and your grandfather fought for and worked for so they can benefit from. And so in the same vein, they argue that we should send billions of dollars of food and supplies and medical and everything else over there. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I'm saying is you can't have it both ways.
Right. And if before we move on to the next thing, I just want to make this last point to kind of sum up what I was saying earlier is, like, we use the illustration of like a house or a boat or a ship, whatever you want. Time, nothing is stagnant. A country, as well as a property, as well as a boat, whatever you want to say, must be constantly maintained. It's not simply enough to build it. Once it is built, it requires maintenance. It rains, it pours, things happen. And we have to think of our nation like that. Just because our ancestors worked really hard to build it, and then we had the highest GDP ever, and it's not the 90s anymore. We need to continue to adapt to the times, look at ourselves, and maintain our identity. And that's what we're losing now. If the base of Americans, if the descendants of the American ancestors are all gone, it will be a different nation. And then guess what? America, Germany, Europe, it will look like the rest of the world.
Well, you make the point that a nation requires maintenance, not just the building. And so I would argue that the people that built the nation must maintain the nation. Otherwise, it won't exist, which is why you see planes falling out of the sky right now, because people that built the infrastructure of flight and airports and control towers and everything else aren't there anymore, or at least they're a very diminishing people within that space.
But yet people that were competent and gave a damn, they're going away.
I would even argue specifically with people that are genetically predisposed to build things and maintain things that are specific to what a Western person would do. And so if you remove that Western, if you remove that culture, if you remove that posterity that built the thing in itself, which is why the roads are all garbage, which is why the economy is well, that's a different discussion too. But everything is crashing all around us because the people that built these systems are no longer maintaining these systems.
Right.
It's quite literally that system. That's simple. You can't build something and hand it to someone that doesn't understand it and expect them to maintain the thing. Oh, Josh. I get frustrated sometimes, man.
It's a lot. What's next?
So we're going to jump into, this is another clip from Jubilee, but this guy kind of talks to Sam Cedar. He says that he is a Reformed Jew. I'm not even sure what that means, but they kind of discuss morality and that, and I know you like to get into apologetics a little bit, so maybe we can play with that.
Excited to see this.
Hey, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Okay, so I would like to touch on the religious fundamentalist aspect.
Yeah.
Are you an atheist?
I'm a Reformed Jew. I don't have a strong belief in the existence of God, but I don't think that religion in and of itself is bad.
Okay, so what's wrong with religious fundamentalists? So like when you said trans rights and women's rights or something like that?
Well, the problem I have with religious fundamentalists, and really more, I guess it's really theocrats,
Okay.
is that they want to impose their morality that comes from their religion on the rest of us. And I don't.
But morality, from your view, is going to be a preference, right? It's not morality; it's a preference.
What's
So morality without a foundation is going to reduce you to a preference.
well, I have a foundation for my morality.
Which is what?
It's a humanist vision of what basically creates as little suffering as possible for as many people.
Okay, so you're like a consequentialist, utilitarian.
I don't really bother myself
fine.
with being a consequentialist or a
Okay.
utilitarian.
It's always going to reduce you to a preference. So if you say that killing is wrong and I say it's right, you would really have no contention with that.
Well, no, I don't base my understanding of civil society on religion. And so we have a civil society.
Okay.
We have laws that we have decided as a society in a
Yes.
democratic way. And for
Perfect.
some people, it's okay for it to be informed by their religion. That's okay.
Okay, perfect. So if tomorrow society comes together and we say, hey, trans folks don't deserve rights, you would be okay with that?
No, I would be against it, but I mean, it would be
It would be morally right under your
not
view.
morally right. No. I'm
Okay.
not talking about morals
Okay,
here.
so here's where I'm getting to, right? Religious foundations provide an ethical framework for one to live their life off
I
of.
believe you can have an ethical framework without religion.
And if we take the leftist view to its logical tail end, to its extreme view, you have low reproductive birth rates. You have a reproductive dead end, so two men together can't reproduce unless they have to take from a healthy straight couple. Religion provides this foundation where you do prioritize the nuclear family.
So do you have a problem with gay people being married?
It's not that I have a problem. I just don't see a justification for why they ought to be gay outside of it just feels good. Can you give me another justification for it?
Well, I think maybe that's the way they were born.
Okay, what about pedophiles? Are they born that way?
They may be, yeah.
Okay, so should we let a pedophile off the hook since they are born that way?
No, I think we as a society has decided.
Should implement duties to prevent them from acting on that innate urge, correct?
Well, I think between consenting adults, it's a different thing than.
Okay,
than
so you're
preying
okay
on
with a
children.
45-year-old dad with a 19-year-old daughter as well? Incest.
No.
If they consent, you're okay with that?
No, I think society has also determined that it's not beneficial.
Right, there's
for-
duties and obligations that we have, so religion provides those duties. Life isn't about
Well, but
freedom
also
and
I can-
exercising what you want.
I mean, well, you want to impose your religious doctrine
No,
on me,
because
and I don't want that.
you just admitted we need duties. We have responsibility as a society to keep us functioning, to keep us thriving. Your leftist view, the liberal view, doesn't provide anything besides it just makes me feel good. Religion does. So what's your argument?
Josh, he straight cooked right there, dude.
He did. And I'll be honest, this debate specifically is one of those cases, in my opinion, where it's like, if you argue with a fool, you're just as much of a fool. It's, to me, it has to be had, unfortunately, because to us, it's like so obvious. When you break down where morality comes from, it is either based in a moral lawgiver or it is not. It is either completely arbitrary or completely not arbitrary, based in something that is tangible and something that is real. And you always get them in this. And honestly, these are like talking points that I've heard 1,000 times since like 2011. I'm surprised he was caught so off guard by this. That, like, why is homosexuality wrong? Basically what he's saying, what Sam Seeger is saying is, well, I don't think it's wrong because I don't think it's wrong. And he even admits that, he says that gay people are born that way. He even admits that pedophiles are basically born that way. But why is one wrong and one isn't? Because it feels like the guy made a perfect point. Your only argument is it's okay for gay people to get married, fall in love, and buy children online because it feels good. Well, pedophiles doing what they're going to do feels good to them as well.
Right, and this is what you end up with. If you do not have a standard of morality, which would be God or the arbiter of morality, then you end up with a individualistic morality. That is the only logical conclusion. What is it? These people like to refer to, society dictates. The problem is What is a society? Is a society the whole world? Well, obviously we don't agree on everything. And if you take that down to a nationalistic level, country, state, city, town, home, you even within the home, you don't agree on what is morality. Like what is truly moral. If there is no arbiter to define that thing. And so you only have the individualistic aspect, which he argues is it feels good. Yeah, you could say so. I don't know if that's the position I would take. It obviously word here, but he's saying that if the line is arbitrary, if the morality line is arbitrary, then there is no line. And that is true. Not only is it true for morality, it's true for a lot of things. It's true for the marriage position. If marriage is not one man, one woman with the intent to procreate, then there is no line for marriage, which is why we're seeing gay marriage and, I don't know, AI, whatever that's coming in the future, that people are going to try to marry inanimate objects. It's like, if the line is arbitrary, there is no line. You have to have an arbiter for specifically morality and almost anything in the realm of defining things.
Right. Yeah,
Sam Cedars, that's his position. He's an atheistic Jew from 2013, 14. I mean, he's a Sam Harris, Brett Weinstein type.
Yeah, this post 9/11 religion bad. Where's your sky daddy type? Atheism is it's funny how quickly atheism burnt out. I mean, atheism was blowing up after 9/11, especially online. Like I remember, I mean, not right after 9/11, but I remember in like 2012, that was the shit.
Yeah, it was a reaction to Islamist extremism.
Right. And then of course,
because religion calls war.
Yes.
Bad.
And then,
I mean, that's like very, 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 very mid-wit level thinking.
Well,
I mean,
Sam Harris and his ilk are gonna, they're gonna equate people that go to Southern Baptist churches to Islamic extremists that crash planes into buildings. They're gonna say, well, because they both believe in something that isn't tangible, like studies, and people that went to school for a long time, they're therefore the same.
Well, we can get back to this point earlier of what is a nation and how do you create nations. We talk about Europeans colonizing places and creating nations. People, these Sam Cedar and Sam Harris and Brett Weinstein types, they don't have their own nation. Well, they can't create their own nation. They have to have a nation created for them. Mm-hmm. And it has to be maintained for them. So, these people are living off of my great-great-great-grandfather's contribution to the world.
Right. And it's so funny to think about. Like you really lose track in the modern world of like what it really meant to like be in a community, to like have a true nation. Because I was talking with a friend about this the other day, where it was like if you got sent back in time to like the 1800s, like I'd probably die. Like I'd probably be like, even with knowledge of the future, I'd be useless back then because of like working on the farm, like doing this stuff, which this type of life that is so foreign to people of our generation was almost like a higher quality of life than what we have now, because it was families, because it was like this true sense of nation and identity. And obviously I'm not saying that the nation in of itself is the only thing. There's obviously Christ, there's God, but that's exactly my point, is it was all these different things, church, community, family, whatever, the nation, these things come together to make the nation. But even though there were so many different things, they were actually all the same. It was all the same things that are different, if that makes sense. I hope I'm not like rambling too much over here.
Well, yeah, no, what you're saying is we had 13 colonies that created a nation to start this foundation of America. All of these 13 colonies would have been their own nation at the time. That's what state is, a nation state. And they came together. They were all individual states that had their own identity, yet they were so similar they were able to create a nation because they all came from the same founding stock people.
Exactly.
Anyway, I mean, that's about all we have today. I mean, I really wish we could get some comments and questions in the comments. Josh, we need to bring somebody on.
Where'd you go?
Yeah, we need to bring somebody on to debate, dude. I'm kind of itching for some debate.
Yeah, that show you were showing me, what's it called again? Jubilee.
Well,
do you like apply to it to be?
I think there's some like audition tape you have to send in. I haven't looked too deep into it.
I'll tell you what, you sign up for Jubilee, I'll sign up for the next Beast Games, and we'll double team those things. Get the message out that way.
I don't know. I want to jump on Beast Games if we can get an invite.
If I could get us some $10 million cash prize.
But yeah, I want to thank everybody for stopping in today. We are live somewhere between 2 and 3, 4 sometime. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Usually 2:30. Shoot for 2:30.
Shoot for 2. Plan for 2. Shoot for 2:30. Wait, I don't know. 2:30, somewhere around there. We'll go live. Floated for about an hour. We've been live for about an hour today. We're just trying to make some headway. We got a lot of stuff coming. Starting a leadership course. I'm going to film that Friday. Start editing that, and then that's not me or Josh. I mean, I got a little bit under my belt, but Joe's going to head up that, and I'll get that pushed out to y'all. Josh, anything you want to tell the people?
I love you. Tell your friends and tell your friends about the podcast. We're going to try, it's a professionally made studio, and I think I can tell, since we've started, we've sort of gotten into a better flow.
I need more time to just create things and make it look nicer on, at least digitally, and then push it out to other people. I mean, that's what it takes. It takes discovery and time and maybe a little money for
give us some money. Give us some money.
But yeah. Thank you for stopping in. We will see you hopefully tomorrow.